So for our project, we will explain about the endangered language, which is the Hokkien language. So what is endangered language? Based on UNESCO.org, endangered language is when speakers cease to use a language or barely use a language or even stop passing it to the other generation. So also, based on malaymail.com and worldometer.info, there are 25 million Hokkien speakers out of 7.8 million people in this world. So some sources also said that there are 30 million Hokkien speakers. So we can see that 0.4% of the world population speak Hokkien language, while the 99.6% of other people speak other language. So that is quite small in number. So we can also see that based on the Book of Knowledge of Languages in Endangered Chapter 8, Hokkien is one of the language that is endangered out of the 220 other languages. And also we can see that UNESCO provides a classification system to show just how in trouble the Hokkien language is. So the Hokkien language is between in the state of vulnerable, or definitely or severely endangered. So this is because some children only speak the Hokkien language, and also in some places only the elders speak the Hokkien language.
Maybe 9. 3 or 4.
When I can talk.
Once a week.
Sometimes.
I speak Hokkien, but mostly I speak Hokkien.
Say yes.
I speak Hokkien, but like the old Hokkien. No. Oh yes, Cantonese. Sometimes. But make it in both or English.
Sometime. English Indonesia.
Chinese. It's Hokkien.
Hokkien.
So the first issue of our project will be Hokkien language is minoritized. Based on speakhokkien.org, the Hokkien language originated from the southern area of Fujian province. Starting from the second half of 20th century, the development of the language was undermined by policies driven by nationalist and monolingual ideologies. This brought about its removal from school, media, workplace and community, and as a result, the language started to decline. Far more often, languages become extinct when a community finds itself under pressure to integrate with a larger or more powerful group. So now moving on to the history of Indonesian Hokkien. According to www.speakhokkien.org, in 1965, after the 30th of September movement, the Suharto region in Indonesia banned all Chinese language schools. Many people gave up speaking their language for fear of persecution due to the heightening of anti-Chinese movement. During the May 1998 riots of Indonesia, the Hokkien speakers in Medan became their primary target. And lastly, the history of Singaporean Hokkien. According to www.speakhokkien.org, in 1979, the Singapore government launched the Speak Mandarin campaign. All non-Mandarin Chinese languages were banned from the media. In 1982, the Singapore government launched a campaign to discourage people from speaking Hokkien in the workplace. In 1984, the Singapore government discouraged parents from speaking Hokkien to their children. So this shows that this issue is as bad as denying one's right to speak in one's mother tongue.
According to the Linguistic Society of America in the article What is Endangered Language? The loss of human languages severely limits what linguists can learn about human cognition. By studying what all of the world's languages have in common, this in turn tells us important things about the human mind and how it is that children are able to learn a complex system like language so quickly and easily, which is related with the critical period. To Montreal Sylvina 2008 in the article Incomplete Acquisition Re-examining the Age Factor, a heritage speaker acquires the heritage language as their first language, L1, through natural input in the home environment and acquires the majority language as a second language, usually when they start school and talk about different topics with people in school or by exposure through media, such as written text, internet, popular culture, etc. Meanwhile, according to Neiman, Elabus, Montreal, Sylvina, Polinsky, and Marriott in 2018, in a white paper to heritage linguistics, as exposure to the heritage language decreases and exposure to the majority language increases, the majority language becomes the individual's dominant language and acquisition of the heritage language changes. The results of these changes can be seen in divergence of the heritage language from monolingual norms in the areas of phonology, lexical knowledge, which is known as knowledge of vocabulary or words, morphology, syntax, semantics, and code switching, although mastery of the heritage language may vary from purely receptive skills in only informal spoken language to native-like fluency.
So the next issue is that Hokkien language has been adulterated. According to Ryan T in his article, Is Hokkien a Gangster Language? That the current version of Hokkien is that the crude and inappropriate language forms are in much larger circulation to the refined and polite one. The version of Hokkien used is the issue. Also, the fact that the current version of Hokkien is strangely popularized in TVs, YouTube videos, and other social medias for comedic effect. The next problem will come when such a crude version of Hokkien becomes a learning point when someone attempts to learn and speak Hokkien. And at the end, the overall impression of the language easily becomes rough and gangsterly. For example, another example. So these phrases shows how the current version of Hokkien influenced the ancient Hokkien semantics. Also, the altered words from both ancient Singaporean Hokkien and ancient Indonesian Hokkien had led to the modification of phonology. All these are Hokkien phrases that have expressively negative meanings, and it is undeniable that every language has its own shares of inappropriate language forms. However, again, Ryan T mentioned that historically, Singapore's mother tongue's education, decision on TV broadcasts of dialects, and Speak Mandarin campaign had caused all Hokkien deemed crude and backward.
So we have come to the end of our project presentation. Before we end, we would like to emphasize the importance of preserving the endangered language in our lives. So it is crucial for us to maintain the authenticity of all languages, and in this case, the Hokkien language, as we can keep the original vocabularies for us to communicate better with each other. So one of the ways to solve the issue for future research is we can do teaching and taking language classes. According to Chang Castillo and Associates, in the ethical language preservation, both teaching and participating in language classes are excellent ways to keep a language alive. Typically, the elders volunteer or are paid in small amounts of stipends to lead classes for a community. Speaking a language, even if only in a classroom or occasional conversational setting, is enough to give stronger and greater value to its words and nuanced meaning. Some ways of which may not translate directly in any other languages. So we hope that this suggestion would help the Hokkien language preserve its authenticity. We also hope that we can take this as a lesson to preserve our own native language, which is the Malay language. Thank you.